And on today's show, how to build confidence and earn trust. Part 2 of this week's series on why long-term care coverage is essential with long-term care expert Maria Sarchi. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author and a backroom technician in Innsbruck. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome to the show, Maria.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, we did our introduction show yesterday. We want to get now past the philosophical issues. We know the math is the math. Long-term care, our series is sent, the word now is we went from it should be a very heavily considered option to it's essential. Yeah. 70% of all geriatrics, and I'm going to use the demarcation line of age 65 and older, are using some form of long-term care right now. Now, if we're going to live longer, like you said we are, think about that complicating the math.
Without a doubt.
I think we're going to see those numbers could grow to 80, 85%, some form of long-term care, whether it's in your home, whether it's a facility, but we're going to be touching this, and this is going to be a serious issue. So we want to incorporate it. And one of the things we talked about in the second segment, and I'm surprised you aren't because you deal with this all the time, but I saw so many retirement plans this year, and none of them had long-term care in them.
I see that quite often. Someone will come to me and say, my advisor has shown me this financial plan, and it's heavily covered with certain types of insurance, but long-term care is nowhere in the mix. And so I'll often ask the consumer, did you talk about long-term care? Was care planning brought up? And I'm often surprised when I hear no. So when we talk about building confidence and earning trust, it's twofold. It's for the consumer, but it's also for the advisor. Helping the advisor to feel confident about the long-term care industry and what suitable options are available is just a key driving force right now.
Now, I used to think this way, and I want to be corrected by you if we're really missing this as an advisor. When should we legitimately start bringing this up? What age am I looking at?
You know, the age that I'm going to say to you is anybody 40 and over.
40?
Yes, 40 and over.
That seems so young.
I know it does. And 20 years ago, we were talking to clients that were 65 and older. But when you look at an individual who is in their 40s today, and they're looking at their retirement, because most of them are, thinking about what the next 20 years of wealth accumulation will look like for them, we fall back to wealth accumulation being protected. And so when you're in your 40s, less expensive to buy the coverage. It need not be your be-all, end-all plan, but it certainly is a great place to start as a stepping stone. So costs will be down, and you've got lots of time in front of you to build this plan out the way that you wish.
Okay, now, but you do this every day. How many are you getting a sector of 40 years old, 40 and older, in that section?
It's a growing sector. Yes, it's a growing sector. It's not nearly what we see for folks that are 65 and above or 55 and above, but this 40 generation, this Gen X generation, is the generation that is taking care of their baby boomer parents, and they also have children that are coming up into college years. So long-term care is on their mind.
I'm trying to think about the mentality of coming to somebody in the early 40s and 50s talking about long-term care, which to most people, at least when I was in my 40s and 50s, my retirement seemed a whole eon away.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure to somebody who's 40 or 45 talking about long-term care seems like something that's way down the horizon. And the reality is it should be to talk about protecting the portfolio, protecting the wealth that's being built by saying we want to prepare for anything catastrophic that might happen to you when you're in your 50s or 60s. You've seen mom or dad go through a care event. So it's not a discussion of deciding today what your long-term care protection will look like for the next 30 years, but it's getting that client to think about the fact that they too need to prepare. Again, it goes back to that better living, better planning, Steve. I've
noticed you also, heard you use this phrase, extended care coverage. You've been there's long-term care, but then there's this extended care coverage. Is that a new way of explaining or expressing it?
There are a number of ways you can talk about care planning, and long-term is hardly the way that I ever do it. Mainly it's care planning, and it's trying to get away from the thought process, the mentality that was there through the 90s and early 2000s that long-term care insurance meant nursing home insurance. We want folks to feel empowered here. We want them to know that this is not the kind of long-term care planning that was done even as recently as 10 years ago. So yes, extended care, care planning, longevity planning, lots of different terms that we can use.
When we're talking about long-term care planning, I'm so focused on the policy insured, and sometimes I become myopic. I forget about the people that are really going to be involved are the caregivers and how much money sometimes comes out of their own pockets.
It's astounding.
Talk a little bit about that, because there's I think you quoted a Fox News report that said something along this line.
Yes. As a matter of fact, they took the extra step to say that 5% of caregivers are actually spending out of their own pocket, somewhere up to $50,000 a year to pay for a loved one's care.
Out of their own pocket.
Out of their own pocket,
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Well, I'm thinking about preparing for my contract, and I want to build a really decent contract. I'm going to have riders on there. I might look at cost of living. I might look at how does it treat the caregiver. I mean, I think a lot of our people are surprised at, they accommodate for many aspects of extended care coverage.
So true. Oftentimes someone will say to me, I've got enough means financially to protect myself. And one of the questions that I'll ask is, well, if something were to happen to you, will you be the person calling me to say that you are in need of care? More than likely it's a spouse or a child. It's someone who is not going to be you. And so these care packages that we'll be building, these planning solutions we put together, they really were meant to protect not only the insured, as you said, Steve, but for the family as well, to give them resources that they wouldn't have to otherwise.
We come back from the break. We're going to continue this discussion and try to, again, bring us into a good understanding of long-term care and how essential it is during retirement. It's not how much money you make for your clients, it's how much money they get to keep, especially in retirement. But retirement income could cause Social Security benefits to be taxed. One tax advantage alternative is life insurance designed as a non-modified endowment contract that can generate tax-free income without taxing Social Security benefits. These contracts offer differing funding options depending upon your client's risk tolerance. For more information on how life insurance can be part of your retirement planning, just email me at steve@downtobusiness.tv. Brought to you by Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Well, welcome back to our second segment. Of course, I'm with Maria Sarchi, author and expert on long-term care. I know you got some articles coming out here. I'm really anxious to see them. Less than 10% of Americans over age 85 have long-term care insurance policies, period. I was stunned by this number. I thought it would at least be, maybe 20, 22%, something like that. Less than 10.
Less than 10. So what does that tell us?
Well, are we not doing our jobs as advisors, or they think it's not something to look at, or they can't afford it? I mean...
Well, actually, I was going to go down the path of there's tremendous opportunity in front of us. Tremendous opportunity to be educating the American public, to be educating advisors, to be teaching what care planning is, to ensure that we get that 10% number where it really needs to be. And we know what the statistics are. You said them earlier, about 70% over 65 needing care. Well, if less than 10% have coverage, tremendous opportunity to educate and help people make an informed decision.
Okay, I'm just trying to be the male advisor listening to this show right now, saying that I only know how to sell product. I don't know how to share caregiving planning. I don't even know that universe. So is that's way different than actually a product, inserting a product into my retirement model.
Well, I think it's critical that people understand that this kind of planning shouldn't be about one product or one solution only, that it does take involvement with the consumer to understand what their key benefit drivers are, to understand ultimately what they want their retirement to look like, what they want their protection to look like. So it's not pull something off a shelf and offer it to the client and walk away. There really does have to be some dialogue. Where does a person want to receive care? How important is it to them that they stay in their own home? It's a few questions that, quite honestly, most advisors know the answers to because they're helping clients with other facets of their planning, estate planning, life insurance, income growth. This is just a little bit of a different pivot. And we spoke in the last segment about building confidence and earning trust. So for the advisor who's not made care planning a big part of his or her practice, alignment with experts or alignment with resources that can help you understand what the marketplace looks like, to stay ahead of what the marketplace is offering, I think will be very, very important.
Well, speaking about resources, I've noticed so many articles in the secular media, whether it's Fox News, USA Today, CBS Money Watch.
It's everywhere.
Everybody's talking about it. And you say, Steve, I'd love to see some of that. Go ahead and write me at steve@downtobusiness.tv, and I'll send you some of the URL links to these articles. I think you'll really enjoy it. So now all of a sudden we have the media on our side.
Yeah. Finally.
Finally,
You know, when you think about an average person who's sitting home enjoying their cup of coffee on a Monday morning and they've got their iPad up and they're looking at the day's media and they're reading these same articles where it's mainstream and it's talking to the consumer in a way that's finally saying, do something. Don't fault yourself into thinking that you have to have the be-all, end-all super coverage, but do something. Think about what your portfolio looks like. Think about what your premium tolerances, think about what kind of assets or investments you might have. Think so that you can ultimately protect yourself. That's what it's all about.
We have some excellent pieces. I know Maria does. I have it through Insmark. There are excellent displays to show long-term care and the impact it has on a client's retirement model. And I have to say, the last two that I've done actually prove that it's better to buy the premium period, especially after the first death of the married couple. Yeah. There's some math and tax issues here that could really make you look at long-term care in a different way.
Yeah, and I'd like to go back just for a moment to the building confidence, earning trust piece. We talked about it impacting the advisor, impacting the consumer. An advisor who may not do care planning on a consistent basis might call me and say, how do I get started? What do I do? And really you can look at it in 4 phases. First phase, align yourself with some LTC resources so you get educated on what's out there in today's market, because it's very fast-paced and ever-changing. And that's a good thing, because as we mature and live longer, new innovative concepts are becoming available. So we need to know what the marketplace looks like. Secondly, go out and talk to your clients. Critical. Go out and talk to your clients about care planning. If you don't want to say the words long-term care, extended care, longevity planning, no matter how you look at it, it's about getting somebody to think about their future. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this too. If ultimately the client decides, even with all the education that you've given, to do nothing at all, document it. Ensure that you have record as an advisor, that you've spoken to your client about the risks of a long-term care event, that you've offered them solutions, and that at the end of all of the education and awareness, they decided to either shift the risk or fully keep it themselves.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor, legal counsel, or your broker-dealer compliance officer. Missed an episode? Just go out to our video archives. And remember, you could be wiser as an educated advisor. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you tomorrow.